I would say in our case, because we are a pandemic-born company. So, by the time we could even think about that, are we going to be remote? Are we going to be in office? We were already 150 people.
How do you see Gen AI fitting into this equation?
If you are working in India, you shouldn't be thinking about work-life balance at the moment.
Enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare in the world of business. The melting pot of resilience is equal parts vision and mission with a pinch of resource and a dash of tact. Now, this spirit of resilience is what defines many of India's digital-first and retail brands, which have not only survived but thrived to contribute in making India's e-commerce ecosystem the envy of the world. Building a direct bridge between these small businesses and their customers is driving an economic opportunity estimated to be worth $60 billion by 2027. So if you want a front row seat to get the best look at innovations that are powering India's D2C market and a startup that is engineering a new commerce revolution, you have come to the right landing page. Welcome to Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. I'm your host, Gautam Srinivasan. Our guest today is someone who truly believes that success is defined by playing a game in which the entire ecosystem wins rather than playing zero-sum games. A serial entrepreneur, an avid reader, thinker, creator, and disruptor. He is Chirag Taneja, CEO and co-founder of GoKwik. Chirag, welcome to Crafting Bharat. How's the Josh?
Thanks, Gautam. The Josh is always high.
All right, we'll make sure that it keeps going higher. Well, someone old once said that good decisions are based on knowledge, not numbers. Although Chirag is a fan of numbers, we'll try to cut the digits and bring out the digital quotient required for running a startup on our first segment titled The Incubator. All right, Chirag, let's start off with the origin story, because when I look back, post-MBA, then auto sector, then banking arena for 5 years, then you go on to found a food tech AI company, and then you arrive at Bombay Shaving Company, where you get a sense of the issues which these D2C brands are facing. Then the pandemic hits, and of course the opportunities multiply, and then you get together with Vivek and Ankush, and you're having your brainstorming sessions to kind of see how you can solve for this ecosystem. So, two-part question. First, the highlights of that brainstorming session that you had, which led to the founding of GoKwik with your early founders. I believe Ankush is the data scientist and Vivek is the tech guru, and you're all business. So take us through the highlights of that brainstorming session, and how has the original thesis of GoKwik stood the test of time? What has worked and what has not worked? What has panned out?
Sure. So, as you rightly said that I'm a typical three-idiot child. Engineer, MBA, banking. And then...
Sabhya ladka.
And then, the startup bug bit me. And then, of course, I would say that this opportunity specifically at GoKwik is opportunity looked for me rather than me looking for an opportunity, to be, fair, transparent. I'd done a lot of content community work in my first startup, did a lot of commerce in the second one at Bombay Shaving Company. And I think the amalgamation of, all of these things came up in the third one, or what it is said that, all success is 10 years of hard work. So it's mostly that I did 7 years of that plus finance, and I could correlate, okay, how does it work? If I talk about thesis, I think our big play was that whether direct to consumer will happen in India or not. That was bet number one, which has fantastically played out. India has gone the route of US rather than China. D2C is nobody asks that question to me anymore. So you can imagine. I think the second one was that, okay, we are playing in this segment. We wanted to go after the cash on delivery market, which nobody else globally was solving. At least it doesn't exist as a problem. So we thought, can we solve that problem? Took that. And probably the third thesis was that we are trying to, in India, if you're trying to build out a large business, a VC-backed business, then you can't do it with a single product like you can do it in US. So it was always clear that we are going to do multiple products and then same merchants
play. You
are
can't
going to
be
use.
a sort of single use
Yeah, and we are going to ensure that this D2C market grows. Right. So that was our view. In that, of course, we have tried multiple things. Some have failed, some have hit. But largely thematically, if you ask me, very married to the vision, very loose on strategy, very flexible on strategy. That okay, depending on what we want to do, depending on where the tailwinds is, we would want to go about it.
So you evolve yourself as the market evolves, which is a great point, and it helps me to segue to my next question, because at GoKwik there is this culture of going to the root cause of problems. In fact, your discovery and solutions meeting are separate, I believe, and your objective is to democratize that shopping experience. So I want to know from you, how has your problem solving approach allowed you to fine tune your product market fit so quickly? And I believe yours is more organic customer outreach versus, say, deploying your vast amounts of sales team, so on and so forth. And since acquisition of customers can be much, much more expensive than retention, is sort of solving problems to retain users the best sales pitch for GoKwik?
Not so much, or maybe a part of it. I'm talking about the retention part of it. But coming to your first question, which you said that the problem, how do we identify problems? Do we go to the root cause of it? I think that's been a big differentiator, at least the way I think. I'm trying to put that as a culture statement inside the company as well. I think most startups, end up putting more emphasis on solution rather than as a problem. Whereas in my view, the problem matters the most.
Ask the right questions, you get the best.
If you get the wrong question, right solution, it still won't fly. It has to be, and by the way, all problems are also not monetizable also. So they might not be for capital markets. You as an entrepreneur should know that, okay, you are entering into a capital market business. There are people who are entering and putting money to make money, right? So it's not a philanthropic exercise. So from that point of view, you should know, okay, what problem do I pick up? And is it worthy enough? Is it a pain point, or is it a vitamin problem? Is it a real pinching pain point problem? And I'll give you an example. I've been quoting this from our cash on delivery problem statement. That when we started to look at that problem statement, everyone said that this is a logistics problem. Cash on delivery has this 30% orders don't get delivered. So everyone said that this is a large logistic problem. Whereas if you look at data, you go deeper, you will realize this is not a large logistic problem. It's a large consumer intent problem. The consumer never had that intent to really buy. They bought this on impulse. And then, when the order got shipped, there was a
buyer's remorse.
Which happened. So then how do you solve for it? So it was actually going to the root cause and saying, okay, if I solve for this, then will this problem reoccur?
So you need to know the context of the pain point rather than just taking it at face value to solve.
Exactly. So you got to observe, what is happening. Ask those, there are these famous frameworks, 5 whys, all of that. But I think it's mostly got to do with, can you go deeper and really identify, or maybe the way I look at this is, okay, if we solve via this way, will the problem reoccur?
तो business की
if it reoccurs,
लोगों की सोच एक तरफ, you need to marry both in a sense. Understand your customers better, understand the context of that need, and then frame a solution accordingly.
And unfortunately, the world is always fascinated by solutions. So US में ये चल रहा है, okay,
copy कर दो यहाँ पे.
Copy कर दो. Even VCs would ask you, is there a parallel? Why should there be a parallel?
But there are some things which people copy and then they revert back to the mean. And I'll take the example of your objective of building this remote first company that you have, right? Soch to badi achhi hai, because during the pandemic, a lot of companies, they said, it's allowing us to access a wider talent pool. People can work from tier 2, tier 3 areas, so on and so forth. But you have stuck to your guns. You have not sort of gone back to only in-person office. Mujhe aapka chehra dikhna chahiye mere saath, unless there's a need for it. So take us through the challenges of having that and how those bets have sort of paid off, because I'm sure your talent pool will be very happy that you're still sticking to your guns.
I would say in our case, because we are a pandemic born company. So, by the time we could even think about that, are we going to be remote? Are we going to be in office? We were already 150 people. So, the Dunbar number, once you cross that, then the organization starts to change. So, we'd crossed that number. And, now, of course, as I was saying, I'm still not married to the fact that, we have to build this company remotely. More married to our overall vision. And then of course, the way, if there are people who would want to work remotely, there are people who want to work to our office. So we have moved now, wherein there are 2 offices now, one in North, one in Bangalore. And there are certain people who come in also. We will continue to evolve. It's been challenging, yes, for sure. For sure. Both sides. If I speak to people, people continue to say, okay, 5 days is definitely a bad idea coming to office. Is 2 day a good idea? Let's say, is 2 day a good idea in a fortnight? For sure, yes. So we're trying to fix, okay, what's the right mix? And especially in a startup, you want culture to take the front seat. Culture happens when, you and I talk. So it can't happen on a Zoom call. Or
it's not a word that HR uses. It has to be actually meaningful for an
Correct.
interaction.
So people, transmit energy when they meet each other. They realize, okay, this is how the company functions. It's not that, okay, Chirag says like this. This is how the company functions. It's not about right or wrong.
All right. That explains why when I asked him how's the Josh, he said we are on a high. It's about the company culture where you look forward to working at the company that you are. All right. Let's talk about scaling as well, because you also mentioned that, when you're starting out, when your data options are limited, founders and teams sometimes take gut-based calls. But as your organization expands, you've got more data supply coming in, then you sort of transition to data-driven decision making. So take us through that, going from gut calls to data-driven decision making, that transition. And also, how do cloud platforms like AWS help startup founders like you make that transition?
I think it's a very interesting question. I've been toiling with this, that insights come from bottom-up ideas, really working on the ground. That's where one is, of course, curiosity about, looking at things and observing that, okay, why is this wrong? Or why is this, in certain way? Maybe, people like me have OCD about certain things, and we are able to observe certain things. But mostly insights, would come from bottom-up, either data, looking at fine cuts of data, or somebody observing in behavior. And typically you see all second, third time founders, they would have done something and they would have figured out, okay, this is a problem nobody else is solving. Like for me, I came I came from that world, and I knew nobody is solving for this problem. I didn't need data to support that. It was gut, and then I figured out, okay, what's the right way to solve about it. So day one, it's gut. And you try and validate by doing experiments and then see, okay, is it working, not working? Classically it is said that there is this famous word called PMF. I keep saying that you will never, there will not be one fine day where clouds will become PMF and you'll get to know, okay, my product has PMF. It's a very gut call which a founder or the product guy or anyone who's running the P&L will feel that, okay, there is more demand about this product than what I can actually produce.
Absolutely. You can trust your gut, but somewhere your intuition is also built on experience. All right, let me take you through the final question of our incubator segment, which is that, as you mentioned, you solve for everything e-commerce. When I look at it, you've been a category creator in ensuring seamless checkout for shoppers. You've solved, as you mentioned, one of the most pressing problems of e-commerce brands, that they face: RTO, return to origin, COD. You're expanding it to WhatsApp interfaces. So you're doing a lot of things. But what's next? What's the next level problems that you are looking to deal with in order to provide more value to the merchants that you work with? And आजकल सब Gen AI के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. How do you see Gen AI fitting into this equation?
I think, from a Gen AI perspective, if I tell you, I am not in that camp where we are debating that Gen AI is happening, not happening, oh, it's not so good, etc., etc. I am of the view that it's happening.
Picture अभी बाकी नहीं, picture शुरू हो चुकी है.
You ride that wave instead of fighting that wave, but that wave is going to get stronger from here. So it's better that we get the surfboard ready and ride. Is it going to change everything in a year? Not so much. Is it going to change in 5 years? For sure. So we are secularly on the right direction. Now, if you ask me, okay, what are we doing in terms of what are the opportunities, let's say in e-commerce? Many such opportunities. 2 clearly identified areas. One, support. Support, I am clearly seeing people moving from tickets or, SaaS pricing to now moving towards outcome pricing. I will solve 5 rupees per ticket, CSAT of 3. That's what the world is moving towards. Similarly, content production. Content production is becoming super personalized. Now, of course, you can make movies
हमें भी retrain करना पड़ रहा है अपने आप को.
Of course. So those are two big ones, but of course, my sense is that the whole ecosystem is going to get reimagined. It's not, I think these smaller efficiency games is still the small game. The large game is, like it is being said that while everyone is trying to make these microchips, Nvidia is going up. There is somebody, like in when refrigerators were done, somebody came and made Coca-Cola. That became a multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar company. So the game is yet to be played out. It's moving towards that direction where innovation, and that's why capital is chasing all of these things.
All right.
Because it's not clear.
अभी तो बस झांकी है, picture अभी बाकी है. Well, that's your 15-minute instruction manual on how Chirag and his team at GoKwik are solving the jigsaw puzzle of the e-commerce market in India. Now, the game gets more interesting as we now learn how to sell shovels during a gold rush. We've got 5 minutes for some Q&A as Chirag tells us how to upgrade our resumes. Let's see what the ingredients are to serve some chicken soup for the startup soul in our next segment called the accelerator. Chirag, your timer starts now. All right, first question. I believe you're a big fan of Rahul Dravid. So tell us about his influence on your leadership approach, because he's seen as this leader of men, a very calm and collected leader of men. How has he influenced your leadership style?
I think mostly around one he has stuck to one field and played the long game. Right. So how do you keep taking the long-term calls which are important for what you're trying to build? And it's applicable in all things. While we get impatient, it's okay to get impatient short-term, but results should yield in long term.
Is that who you are as a person, a test match player versus a T20 player in life?
I would say if you ask my team, they will keep saying that, when is this going live? All of that stuff I will ask. But, I will always have a strategic view of things that, okay, what's going to happen in 2 years? How is this industry going to play out in 2-3 years?
All right. Lambi race ke ghode hain. All right. Second question, your thoughts on this whole conversation that is happening around work-life balance, because that has really gained steam. People are asking, how many hours do I work and how many hours do I spend to my life? Your thoughts on that?
I have a couple of thoughts. One, in my view, this is a non-question that, if you are in India and you look at our GDP per capita, we are around $2,000 and we start comparing ourselves to US, which is at $82,000. I think there is too much gap for us to even ask and ponder about this question. And I'm a little bit of a believer that outcomes matter more than, number of hours you put in. And that is what at least helps us drive more remote also. So I'll put it that way, that one, if you are working in India, you shouldn't be thinking about work-life balance at the moment.
Especially as a startup founder, right?
As a startup, it's our opportunity to build the country. How can you think about I'm putting 40 hours or 30
the
hours?
The Josh
or
itself will take care of that question.
We have a huge responsibility on our shoulders. I look at it that way.
Okay.
If you look at it that way, you're raising your kid, you won't say, okay, I'm going to do 50 hours a week. I won't measure it only.
Now, when we look at life in general and a business in general, right? When you're not, say, operating in a safe to fail environment and you're scaling up rapidly, how do you navigate that? In a sense, how do you change engines of your airplane while it's mid-air?
I would say that still early days for us. We don't operate in the, fail-safe mode. We do a lot of experiments. And generally it comes with that, at least one of the values which we have internally is ambition. That and it comes from me mostly, that if we don't have 10x objectives, it's only KPI, then that's not what startups are meant for. You are here to change the world. There are people who imagine it. If you don't take 10x objectives now, in my view, it's a very different way of thinking. If you want to bring, there is a very good video by Brian Chesky on how do you think 5-star, 6-star, 7-star thinking on Airbnb. It's the same, and by the way, if you start imagining a 10-star thinking, it's not 5-star into 2. It's a different thinking.
All right.
So it comes from that okay, you got to think big and then achieve incrementally, which is fine. And then there is no scope for, thinking, okay, I'm going to fail. Mostly you're going to fail. So you're starting on that premise that it's not going to work out.
All right. Your thoughts on this, this adage which comes that don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. Your view on this.
I think, as it is said that, all customers are looking for their problems to be solved rather than buying our solutions, right? So, or buying our products. So, typically, I would say that, always the pitch, and let's say when you're doing product discovery also, it's mostly got to do with what is the real problem you're trying to solve. And then the pitch also has to be constructed to, what value are you creating by solving that problem? Is there an incremental new value which is getting created? If that happens, that it moves in that direction. Not getting that, okay, I have made this solution for you. I don't know what problem does it solve. And by the way, I have seen this many times that the problem does not exist. We have solved problems which does not exist, which mostly are in product manager's brain or somebody's brain, like a founder's brain. He believes that the problem exists, but in real life, the problem does not even exist.
All right. My problem currently is that your answers are so nice and short that I haven't had the chance to use this buzzer. So I'm just going to do it for my sake. All right, that's your 5-minute recipe for dealing with the rice and spice of being a startup founder right here on Crafting Bharat, a startup guide with Chirag Taneja of GoKwik. It's time for dessert as we bring on a tray full of questions from our audience for Chirag to answer. Let's ring the bell for our final segment called The Advisor. Our first question comes from Sharan Agarwal, an angel investor and VC fund advisor, and he asks, please shed some light on how a startup should best justify its valuation to an investor considering the vast overvaluations that have been taking place, and what would you recommend as a good revenue multiple for early stage startups to use as a benchmark for valuing themselves, and what is the multiple you would use in case your startup is pre-revenue? A parliamentary question with 3 questions. I'll give you a minute to answer that.
I would say that, in an early stage, it can't be pegged to a revenue number. It's, one of those things that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it depends on who's looking at the opportunity, what kind of opportunity it is. It can't be, I think if I am a founder, I am looking at raising money and starting on a journey where I can achieve product market fit. Once that is done, then you size up the opportunity. Okay, day one, there is no revenue model. And I won't, if I'm investing in someone, I won't even ask them that, okay, what's the revenue you're going to make? If I am a real VC investor, I know that this is going to be a power law business. There are going to be 1-2 startups who are going to really kill it for me. And, so day one, it doesn't matter. I rarely do investments. But if I like something, I won't consider, whether I'm getting at $5 million or $10 million or $15 million. I think a seat on the bus is more important than getting in at the right number.
To see where the journey is.
It's more important when you are in a late stage. When it's clear that, okay, you are entered a growth stage, and then, okay. But it typically happens, a little very late in the business. I think my friend Shantanu had said sometime that most value in a business is created in the last, 5 years of 2 decades. So if you look at data, so imagine we are trying to do all of this maths valuation in the first 5 years. It's very hard. It's very hard.
All right. And combining science and art, that's where the magic happens. All right. Onwards to our second question, and that comes from Hiren Shah, founder of Vertos Advertising Limited. And he asks, a direct-to-consumer trend that you have set your eyes on, and how will it change the e-commerce landscape? Bada sawal, bada jawab.
My sense is that direct to consumer is very path breaking from multiple point of view, but the one which at least I really like is that it gives power to everyone who has an idea to start a brand of their own, to start an e-commerce shop of their own. And they end up making a 2-3 crores per month business. That's a great outcome, if you're trying to build out a 30-50 crore annual business in India. It's a great outcome. I think direct to consumer, think of it like, more like a restaurant industry, wherein you will have many restaurants who do like 2-3 crores a month. Similar direct to consumer is happening where you will find out, and India, by the way, is also heterogeneous. It's not homogeneous. We are amalgamation of some 30 odd countries. So you can imagine, everyone has this one unique sweet insight they'll start producing a D2C brand. And the beauty about digital is that I can find out same Gautams who stay everywhere around the world, not only India, and just serve them. And that itself is a beautiful, large, self-sustaining business. I think direct to consumer is moving there.
All right. I think that's more and more needed, right? Because there's a whole cohort of users wondering why are they not being served? They have the money, but why are they not being served? As the ecosystem evolves, more and more players get into it. And of course, you are enabling them to service customers in the best way possible. All right, onwards to our third and final question. And this one comes from Kedar Dave from Shuru Up Ventures. And he asks, can you shed some light on how can an e-commerce company reduce cart abandonment? This is my favorite issue because there's been so much written and spoken about it. I want to get your thoughts on this. Reducing cart abandonment. How do you do it?
I'll just try and explain it very basically. If 100 users land on a website, only 3 transact, at best 3-4 transact. So what about those 96 different people? And those 96 different people abandon the website at different points in time. Somebody will drop at the home page, somebody will drop at the product page, somebody will add to cart and then drop, somebody will initiate a checkout and then drop. And then of course there are steps in between. Now typically, you would say that, okay, if somebody has added to cart, they'd shown the most intent. At least they shouldn't be, dropping out of my website.
So how do you seal the deal? Reward them?
There are multiple levers to do that. One of course is what you're saying, rewards and offers. You reduce the price and then help them move over the transaction, but also remove frictions. So can you remove frictions? Once I have made the intent, can you make it seamless for me? And especially, when it comes to online, you have to do this login step wherein I have to identify, okay, who is you? Then moving on to, okay, I have to ask you for an address because e-commerce shipment has to be shipped to you. Then the third one is, okay, I have to ask you for a payment, right? And then there is offers, discounts. And in India, there are many payment options. While we would want to bundle everything as UPI, but UPI has many PSP payment partners. Similarly, we have credit cards, debit cards. Now BNPL options start to come in. So imagine, all of these lead to drops. We as a company come in and say, okay, why do you need to log in again and again? So if you are on the GoKwik network, you're auto-logged in. Similarly, we know that, okay, which address you stay at. We have seen the deliveries happen there. We will pre-populate that address wherever you go.
So that's the beauty of that ecosystem play. Reduce friction. Make your customers.
So it works for both. For the merchant also, they would want the transaction to go through. For the consumer also, they've made the intent. They would want to just finish this, process and then move over.
All right. Always a win-win game with you. But with that, it's time to conclude this episode of Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS. This podcast is an initiative by NewsReach. Chirag, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with our audience the GoKwik story of growth and resilience. And if you are trying to battle the sharks in the e-commerce tank and looking for help, how about giving GoKwik a look and trying on some boxing gloves for size? A big thank you to our audience for tuning in. Do like, share and subscribe to our channel for stories on surviving and thriving in this ever-changing world of startups. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Crafting Bharat, a startup guide powered by AWS, is an initiative of NewsReach in association with VC Circle, produced by HT Smartcast. The director and executive producer of this show is Deepthi Ahuja. The assistant producer is Veda Mohan. The video editor on this show is Kuljit Singh. And the audio editor is Amrinder Singh.